Okay, for this module, I'm going to show you how to take your dartless sleeve block. So it's just the one that we just got from the book. We're going to change this into a dropped, we're going to change the sleeve cap height. And we can do this either making it taller or shorter. I'll show you how to make it shorter because we're going to then go ahead and use it to create a you can use it for just a more relaxed look, or you can use it to develop things like the raglan sleeve. So I've already drawn this out, and I've got my vertical line going down the center, which doesn't necessarily line up with a notch up here, and the one going from underarm to underarm. And I am literally going to slash down the middle, not beyond the seam allowance, and slash across the base of the sleeve cap from underarm to underarm. And I'm going to hinge at each of those points. So that I can take the entire thing and it can squash like this. So as it goes down, I'm changing the height of the sleeve cap. It also happens to be making the sleeve a lot shorter, but we'll address that later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a different piece of paper and put this down on top of it. And I am going to just create a line that represents my underarm. And I'm going to determine how tall I want my sleeve cap. So at this size, it's going to be 1 inch tall. At a full size, it's going to be 2 inches. I have not really ever, well, there's only one time that I've ever seen a sleeve cap shorter than 2 inches. But as a general rule, this is about as short as you want to go on a sleeve cap. And this is the one that you want to use for a bunch of different things. So this distance is 1 inch at half size, 2 inches at full size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to let it continue to drop down so that my underarm right here stays level with the bottom line right there. You can see, and as it comes down, you're going to see the top line get closer and closer. If this breaks off, that's okay. It's nice if it doesn't break off, but if it does, that's fine. Just get closer and closer until the underarms are matching up that bottom line, and the top point is in line with your 1 inch mark. And you're just going to tape that into place. Take the bottom, and if it hadn't broken apart, these would have already been out here already, but we can take the bottom part and just reattach it, lining up down there. Make sure when you're done with this, that your pattern is lying perfectly flat. It's really easy when you're doing this one for this to kind of point out a little bit. We don't want that. Okay. Now it looks like we've got a bunch of mess here. And it's kind of true, we do. We still want to maintain our notches there and our notch right here. But really what we have to do is come in and just make all of these lines pretty. So this top curve right here, I'm going to blend from this top curve over to here, which might make the sleeve cap a little bit taller than 2 inches. That's okay if you really are intent on getting it to be exactly this 1 inch distance, then you would have dropped it down farther and you would have lined the tops of these, or the top of this area that you were blending to a 1 inch. Which you can do, but this is sufficient for the most part for anything that we're going to do. So unless the spec sheets on the specific company's things specifies you need exactly this sleeve cap, which sometimes they will, then you can adjust it for that. But that just needs to be blended nice and smoothly. And then it needs to blend nice and smoothly from this curve over to the underarm seam. And one thing that's important with the underarm seam is that it's 90 degrees right here, coming off of here and here. But before we do that, we have to address something else, which might affect this angle. And that is going straight down the middle. So I'm going to redraw that line straight down the middle of my sleeve, just like I had it before. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to revisit this sleeve because I want this seam, not this seam, but this line from the top of this sleeve down to the bottom of the sleeve to be the exact same. So whatever that measurement is, I'm going to come up to the top here. I'm going to measure down so that this is the exact same length. And I'm going to measure the same at the wrist. I want the wrist to be the exact same. So I'm going to transfer those numbers over. Just draw a new line straight across. And then from this new point, I'm going to draw a line up to the underarm. It's starting to get really messy, so if you want, you can totally erase all of the rest of these lines, just so that they're not confusing. Or you can X them out, either or, it doesn't really matter, so long as we know that they are no longer important is what really, really, really matters in this situation. Some of the lines in the middle have been taped over, so we're just gonna we have no choice but to X them out. So, can get rid of all of that old information, and we know that the sleeve is going to be the same height, and we've changed the sleeve cap. This center line going straight down, that will be our grain line. Make sure we X all of these things out. Oh, I don't want to X that out, that's my grain line. But all of these lines, we want to make sure that all of them are hashed out, so we know that they're no longer important. From the new underarm curve here, we know, underarm line here, this needs to be 90 degrees for at least ½ an inch, but I don't want it to really ever dip below that 90 degrees, so I'm just going to extend it a little ways till basically it hits the curve. And then I can take a French curve or whatever form of curve you have and blend it nicely between the old cap. X out what we don't need, and the new cap. Redo our seam allowance because it's gone crazy. Erase what you don't need. X out what you can't erase because it's covered with tape. And come back in and fill it back in with seam allowance. Go ahead and cut that out. Once you've finished cutting it out, go ahead and label it. So this would be DJR, whatever my style name happens to be. And I'm just going to call this a block actually, because I'm going to transfer this over to hard paper so I can use it later. And this is going to be 2-inch sleeve cap, or 1 inch at half size. And it needs to be a size 8, and it's a 2 self, and number whatever you want it to be. Since it's going to basically be a block, make sure you have all of your notches nice and clear. But ultimately, you definitely want to transfer this over to hard paper so that you can use this as a block. And that's it.